Hi, this is Charlie Hesse from Tropical Birding and welcome to this virtual bird tour of Taiwan. I went to Taiwan for the first time about 20 years ago and I've guided there many times since. It's a place I love going back to. I love the food and the scenery and the people, the language. I've been studying Chinese for the past 10 years. But yeah, most of all, I love the wildlife. It's got amazing birding. It's got almost 30 endemics, including this beautiful swinhose pheasant. It's got some amazing shorebirding. It's got beautiful breeding pitta that we're going to go and look for. And recently we added a migration extension to this tour that's got some pretty exciting birding on some small islands just off the Asian mainland. Anyway, so I hope you enjoyed. Let's start with a map of the region. You can see Taiwan is a very large island located off the Chinese mainland. It's about 245 miles long by 90 miles wide at the widest point. It's got a long and complex history. The first immigrants were about 6,000 years ago from Polynesia, and more recently in about the 17th century there was a large migration of Han Chinese. In 1895 it became a colony of Japan for 50 years until the end of the Second World War, when it was handed to the Chinese nationalists. And in 1949, when the Nationalist Army lost the Chinese Civil War against the Communist Army, they fled to Taiwan. And Taiwan's official name is still the Republic of China, compared to mainland China, which is the People's Republic of China. It's quite a complicated situation politically. Let's have a closer look at Taiwan. You can see it's oriented north to south here. There's a central mountain chain that goes all the way down. About 2/3 of Taiwan is mountains and forest. There's a population of about 24 million people, most of who are in cities in the flat areas. You can see there's a very broad coastal plain on the western side and a very narrow plain on the eastern side. Okay, we're going to start the tour at the Taoyuan International Airport. It's not actually Taipei, the capital, but a city nearby. Some people may choose to come early, and this is one of the things you can see. The National Palace Museum, very famous museum. It's got a lot of ancient Chinese artifacts and treasures. There's also lots of interesting temples around Taipei that are great places to visit. Markets as well are very vibrant and fascinating places. The food in Taipei is absolutely outstanding. There's all these little kind of steamed buns and different types of meats and vegetables. This is pretty much how we're going to be eating on the tour, family style. We order several different dishes, we take requests, and then we get lots of rice, and then we just all share the food. I'm a vegetarian, and Taiwanese vegetarian food is absolutely outstanding. It's one of the best places in the world to visit as a vegetarian. They take like fake meat and fish to a different level. We're going to start the migration extension at the Keelung Ferry terminal, where we're going to get on an overnight ferry to the island of Dongyin. This is part of the Matsu Islands, which are just off the coast of mainland China. Birds migrating along the coast northwards in spring. And they tend to fly over the sea rather than over the land. And if there's any inclement weather, a headwind or any rain, then they'll come down, they'll drop down onto these small islands. So we're going to be visiting two of these islands, Dongyin and Nangang. There's really nothing special about the habitats here. We just drive around different places, grassy areas, little patches of forest and orchards and things like that, looking for what birds we can find. Let's zoom in on Dongyin. One of the first places we visit is the running track, which has nice short grass. Sometimes here we can see things like little curlew, grey-headed lapwing. It's also good for things like pipits and wagtails. This is a red-throated pipit in breeding plumage. Several different wagtails. This is white wagtail. Sometimes you get several different subspecies of white wagtail. More inside the forest now, you can get things like this forest wagtail. When we were there, there were some Taiwanese bird photographers and they'd set up a little feeding station. So they got a little log and they put some mealworms on it, and there was all sorts of different birds coming in to feed on them, including this forest whitetail. There's a lot of different buntings in breeding plumage, like this chestnut-eared bunting, Tristram's bunting, little bunting, the rare Japanese yellow bunting. This is a globally threatened species and it's quite hard to find in many places. It's probably the best place to see it is on migration. This is a critically endangered species called the yellow-breasted bunting. It winters down in Thailand and Cambodia, but it's not particularly easy to see there. Just hunkers down in the long grass. On migration, it just sits out in the open, so much easier to see, and of course it's in breeding plumage too. Some beautiful flycatchers, like this blue and white flycatcher. The Narcissus Fly Catcher, which looks kind of like a Blackburnian warbler with this beautiful orange colour. You'll notice this has got an orange brow, and there's a similar species called the yellow-rumped flycatcher, which has a white brow. When we were on these islands, we created a bit of a stir. A journalist from the local newspaper came to interview us, brought his camera and his notebook, and came to find out what we were up to. And then we made the front page of the local paper, Wagoren Shangniao Tuan, and the foreigners birding group. Yeah, so that was 15 minutes of fame. From Dongying, we're going to take a ferry across to Nangang, a larger island, yeah, with many of the same species. And from there, we will fly back to Taipei. This time we'll be landing in Taipei City at the smaller Songshan Airport for domestic flights. Continuing on the migration tour, we're going to head to the town of Jinshan. There's also some migration hotspots here, and we're going to use that as a base to visit this little peninsula here. It's called the Yeliao Geo Park. It's a little spit of land that sticks out into the sea, which sometimes catches a few migrants. This is what it looks like on the ground. There's lots of interesting geological features here, which are quite a popular tourist place. Looking back at the map, most people just go to this first section, but we're going to continue on to this little forested place here, which is much quieter. And yeah, we may find some other interesting migrants there as well. There's a few rare vagrants that have occasionally shown up in Taiwan, like this Siberian crane that we saw a few years ago. And just recently there was a very rare Byers pochard that showed up as well. So if a rarity shows up during this tour, then we'll make sure we go and twitch it. From Yeliao, we're going to finish the extension and head back to Taoyuan Airport, where we'll meet up with clients that didn't join the extension. And then on the main tour, we're going to start at the Sherman Dam. It's just a little area of lowland forest by a big reservoir, but should get us our first endemics of the tour. The hotels in Taiwan in general don't do very early breakfasts, so what we normally have to do is get picnic tables and chairs, and then buy lots of food, cereal and yogurt and bread and peanut butter and teas and coffees and things, and then we have a lot of field breakfasts. It's actually a very nice part of the tour because it means we're having a lot of birding breakfasts. This is the Taiwan blue magpie, our main target here. It was actually voted the national bird of Taiwan. Stunningly beautiful bird, and yeah, we quite often see it here. We should see another bird, the Taiwan barbet. It's fairly common. In Chinese, this is called a Wuseng Yao, which means a five-colored bird: green, blue, yellow, red, and black. Another endemic we might see is the Taiwan whistling thrush. We might see some more skulking babbler-type birds, like this Taiwan scimitar babbler. And this is one of the more recently split birds. This is now called the Taiwan bamboo partridge. It's one of the tougher endemics, but we often hear it here. It's got a very loud call. Some of the birds we might see include the crested goshawk, endemic subspecies of grey-capped woodpecker, endemic subspecies of grey tree pie. We've got a bit of a drive now, about 3 hours down to the southwestern side of Taiwan, and a place called Augu. It's a wetland bird reserve full of shorebirds. You can see here's a sign for Augu, beautiful accident. I think that was maybe lost in translation. This is one of the most famous residents, the black-faced spoonbill. Black-faced spoonbills are an endangered species, but they've really increased in recent years, and now there's over 4,000 of them, about 50% of which winter in Taiwan. Hopefully there'll still be a few hanging around. Many of them have started to move north to their breeding grounds. Augu is a wonderful place for shorebirds. Many of them are in breeding plumage, like this lesser sand plover, gorgeous sort of rusty red colour and these beautiful black and white facial markings. Lots of Sandpiper family, like these ruddy turnstones, should be a common sight for people in Europe and North America as well. This is one of the commoner shorebirds, the Marsh Sandpaper. It's got a very long, thin, straight bill. Normally in winter they've got very whitish plumage, but their breeding plumage is this beautiful sort of speckled pattern on the chest. Another one of the common birds is a red-necked stint, very small bird. You can see a beautiful sort of orangey colour on the throat. Another one of the small shorebirds is the long-toed stint. You can see as it picks its feet up out of the mud, those very long toes, got a very warm brown back. You can see it. It's a nice comparison here next to the red-necked stints. One of the specialty Asian shorebirds is the broad-billed Sandpiper. See, it's got these very distinctive crown stripes and this quite long curved bill that dips down towards the tip. This is another one, the sharp-tailed Sandpiper, very distinctive feeding behaviour there. This is one of my favourite shorebirds, the curlew Sandpiper. In breeding plumage they have this rusty red colour, really beautiful. These are very interesting birds. This is the red-necked Phalarope. You can see there's some dull-coloured ones there in the front and a nice reddish-necked one at the back there. The duller ones are actually the males and the colourful ones are the females. Males incubate the eggs and look after the chicks, and the female will go around mating with several males. Very unusual in the animal world. This is known as polyandry. Near Tainan, we may also go and visit a place for this beautiful bird, the pheasant-tailed Jacana that breeds near here in a small reserve. From Augu, we're going to head a little bit further south to Tainan City, and then another place nearby called Chigu. This area has got lots of little creeks and ponds where we may see common kingfisher. It's also got some farmland where we might see the endemic subspecies of ringneck pheasant, a really beautiful bird. There's a lot of other grassland birds, like this golden-headed cisticola here in breeding plumage. Near Tainan there is a bat museum. It's called the Formosan Golden Bats Home, and it's absolutely fascinating. There's a bat called the Formosan Golden Bat, and some local bat enthusiasts got together and they set up a small bat museum. Chinese often give themselves an English name. This lady, because she loves bats so much, called herself Echo, after echolocation. So this is Echo telling us all about the local bats. And then we're taken out to find these beautiful little things. These are the Formosan golden bats. Okay, from Tainan, we're now going to move up towards the mountains to a place called Alishan. Alishan is a very famous tea growing area. It has world famous tea. We stay in a nice lodge there, and the owner gives us a little tea ceremony where we can try out some local Taiwanese teas. He's a very interesting chap. He's also involved in conservation. Once he was on TV in Taiwan, and he recorded the show, and anyone that goes there now has to sit through his little TV show, which he puts on a big screen. He's an interesting guy. He set up a feeding blind for this endemic, the Taiwan partridge. Very difficult bird to see if you're just going to go and look for it in the forest, but when you go to his blind, it's obviously very easy. A little bit dark in there, but yeah, you get very good views of these birds. We may also see this beautiful bird, the swin-hose pheasant. It just looks like it's been made out of sapphires and rubies. It's just an absolutely gobsmacking bird. It's really one of my favorite birds. Yeah, and we should get good views of it. Here's one feeding on the grain. Some other birds often come in as well to a little bird bath there. This is another endemic species called the Steers leocicla. And another bird we might see is the endemic subspecies of white-tailed robin. This is a very good area to go out at night. You can see several owl species, including the mountain Scops owl, which is normally a very difficult bird to find. We may also see the giant flying squirrel, which is also fairly common in the area. From Alishan, we're going to head up into the mountains, into the Yushan National Park. Just going to show you a little bit of topography here. You can see Alishan is down in the lower mountains, and as you go up, these mountains sort of get bigger and bigger till we get up to the Yushan National Park. Yushan is actually the highest mountain in Taiwan. Yu means jade, so it's Jade Mountain, and they've got some very nice high elevation species there. It's beautiful mountain scenery. Yeah, a very special place to visit. On the way up, we should get some mid-elevation birds like this endemic Taiwan Yuhina, the grey-chin minivet, and the endemic subspecies of vivid niltava. So Taiwan's at the moment got 29 endemic species. It seems to increase every year, and this is probably a banker. It's a very distinctive subspecies and will probably be split at some point as the Taiwan niltava. Another bird we can see up there is the very cute black-throated tit. Formosan rock macaques, an endemic mammal, are also pretty common up there, and they've become quite used to people and often hang around by the side of the road. A little bit higher up, we'll start to get some higher elevation species like this yellowish-bellied bush warbler, which has a very distinctive call. Other birds we may come across include Eurasian jay, another distinctive subspecies. One bird that we may only see here on the trip is the grey-headed bullfinch, another endemic subspecies, and another contender to be split in the future as Austin's bullfinch. Some of the birds we might see include Taiwan fulveda, and a bird that it often associates with, the golden parrotbill, which is another banker, probably going to be split in the future. From Yushan, we're going to head to our next site, which is Qingjing. On the way, we're going to stop at a place called Puli, where there's a little park where we're going to look for this beautiful bird, the Maroon Oriole. It's not maroon, you're going to tell me. That's because it's another distinctive endemic subspecies. Could be split as the red oriole. Another bird we can find here is the Taiwan huamei. This is very similar to the Chinese huamei. It's a different species now. Chinese huameis are commonly kept as cage birds by Taiwanese people, and escapees are now hybridizing with the native huameis, and you get these hybrids. I think this huamei here has got a little bit of Chinese in it. Okay, so we're going to head to Qingjing. Qingjing is a very interesting place. It's a sort of like a hill resort, and they've got a whole bunch of different hotels there. There's a Camelot hotel and an Old English hotel and all sorts of different ones. So it's a place where the Taiwanese can sort of take a little interesting trip. It's also got some very nice hill forest nearby, which is what we're going to be looking for. This is a view from our hotel. A place we've been staying in the last couple of years has a wonderful restaurant. It's a hot pot restaurant, Huoguo, and they give you a big pot of broth. You can choose which one you want, a spicy one or a non-spicy one or a vegetarian one, and they give you a whole bunch of other stuff to put inside, meat or tofu or vegetables, and then you cook your own little hot pot at the table, which is a lot of fun. This is a previous tour that we were enjoying hot pots and some Taiwan beer. Some of the birds we're going to be looking for up there are Taiwan bowing, a sort of babbler type bird. Another one of the endemic laughing thrushes called the rusty laughing thrush. Quite hard to see, but very vocal. This is another bird we're going to be looking for, the Taiwan shortwing. It was recently split from the white-browed shortwing, which the male has dark grey plumage, and this male has brown plumage, so it's quite different looking bird, but was recently split. Bit of a skulker. Another skulker is the Taiwan cupwing. The cupwings are in their own family. They're like a little black ping pong ball, a tiny little round bird with hardly with any tail at all, and they've got this loud high-pitched call, but a real tricky bird to find, but we normally do find it. Some of the birds we might find include the Taiwan yellow-tit, the white-eared sibia. Sometimes if we play the collared owlet call, you get a lot of these birds coming in to mob the owl away, and sometimes we do get an owl coming in as well. We may also see the white-backed woodpecker, another distinctive race. Just going to show you a little bit of the topography of the area. This is sort of like on a ridge in the mountains with very nice forest on one side, and we're going to follow this road up higher and higher and higher up to the up to the Wuling Pass up here. This is the highest road in East Asia. It's 3,275 meters, which is well over 10,000 feet. Can be pretty cold up there. We're going to be looking for, there's a parking lot up there, the viewpoint, and we're going to be looking for some special birds up there. Spectacular mountain scenery up there. You'll see here the tree line with lots of pine trees, and above that is grassland. So on the way up, we're going to be checking some of these pine forests for birds like spotted nutcracker, flame crest, another endemic bird which is in the same family as the North American kinglets. It's called a flame crest because sometimes it puts its beautiful crest up, but you don't always see that. Another high elevation bird we might see is the collared bush robin, another endemic species. As we go up into the grassland, we might come across the Taiwan bush warbler. Not much to look at, but it's got a very fascinating call. It sounds almost like Morse code. Up at the top, it can be pretty cold. It can even snow. This is my boss's wife enjoying a little bit of snow. Very unusual in Taiwan. There's not many places where that happens, so they're quite excited. Up here, some of the birds we might see are the Taiwan rosefinch, another recent split. Used to be called the venacious rosefinch, and it's got this beautiful kind of red wine coloured plumage. Yeah, really beautiful bird. Another bird we might see is the white-whiskered laughing thrush. You notice up here, birds can be extremely confiding. Some of these birds are almost hopping around your feet. And this is a big target up here, probably the only place on the tour that we'll see it, the alpine accentor. Not an endemic, but another very distinctive subspecies. From the Wuling Pass, we're going to go down to the small town of Tianxiang. Once we get over the pass and start going down, we get back into this very lush montane forest. We arrive at the town of Tianxiang. Our target here is the Taiwan bulbul, or Stein's bulbul, another endemic species. This is mainly found on the east coast of Taiwan, but it comes up as high as this, so it's our only chance to see it. Below this is the beautiful Taroko Gorge. It's really one of the most spectacular mountain roads in Asia. This road was dug by hand chiseled out by indentured workers, and many people died during the making of the road, but it's a really stunning road to visit. Around here in the rivers we may come across a brown dipper, or a plumbeous water redstart, or the endemic subspecies of little forktail. From Tianxiang we're going to cross back over to Qingjing, and our next site will be Hui Sun. Not far as the crow flies, but because of the mountain we've got to sort of go all the way around. Hui Sun's a more lowland area with some interesting birds. One of our targets is the Taiwan blue magpie. We may have seen this already, but here they tend to be very common and confiding, so it's a good place to get photos. This is another endemic called the chestnut-bellied tit. It's another recent split from varied tit, and it's probably going to be the only place we find it on the tour. These Malayan night herons are also quite common on the lawns there. This is the adult, and here is the juvenile. Very different looking, very distinctive barring on the neck. Some other common birds we might come across include the black bulbul, another endemic subspecies. We might be tired after all this birding, and we can take a little rest in some hammocks between the trees. From Hui Sun, we're going to go up to another montane site called Da Shui Shan. Da Shui Shan means big snowy mountain. It's really one of the most spectacular sights of the tour. We're going to stay up on the mountain in a place called the National Forest Recreation Center. Here you can see some of the spectacular mountain scenery of Da Shui Shan. Da Shui Shan is a very special place. It's the best place to find the Mikado pheasant, one of the spectacular endemic pheasants. Used to be the national bird, and it was voted out by the Taiwan blue magpie, but it's really still one of my favorite Taiwan birds. The female's a lot more drab. You can see her there on the left. This is a video I just took with my cell phone. Not great quality, but you get a good idea of what the bird looks like. It's got some really beautiful kind of velvety texture on the feathers. Really stunning bird, absolutely gorgeous. You can see it. And got some little fresh fern leaves. Some of these can be quite confiding, and it was almost walking right up to us. At the feed sites we see some other little small mammals, like this maritime striped squirrel and Perney's long-nosed squirrel. It can be quite rainy on the mountains sometimes, but there's a visitor centre here where you can shelter and look at some of the exhibits. Lower down there's another endemic pheasant called the swinhose pheasant, which we may have seen already, but another stunning endemic bird. And here's the female again, not quite so stunning. Yeah, but a really beautiful bird, and you get very good views. These are really used to people now, so you can get quite close and get really nice photos. Sometimes you can have them flapping their wings, and you can even see some nice courtship displays. This one sort of does these kangaroo hops after the female. It's quite entertaining to watch. Da Shui Shan is also our backup if we've missed any birds already. It's the best site for some birds, like this Rufus crowned laughing thrush. And also this one, the Taiwan thrush. This was recently split from the island thrush. When it was split, I think a lot of the guides gave a big sigh. It's a really tough bird to find, and we all do try our best to find all the endemics. It's not easy now, but we have a good chance here. Da Shui Shan is also fantastic for night birding. This is one of the things we can go out and look for. The Himalayan owl, another endemic subspecies, possible split. It's also great for mammals. Sometimes we see this animal at night, the Formosan serau, like a sort of mountain goat. Sometimes see this endemic subspecies of Reeves muntjac, a small type of deer. Another animal we're going to be looking for is the red and white giant flying squirrel. Really spectacular mammal. It's about, it's over 3 feet long from the tip of its nose to the tip of its tail, really big. From Da Shui Shan, we're going to go down to the city of Dolio. And from here, we're going to visit an area called Huben, where we're going to look for the fairy pitta. This is where we're going to start our search at a little temple, and often behind here you can hear the pittas calling. Some of the other birds that we might find include rufous-faced warbler, another endemic subspecies, this time the bronzed drongo, endemic subspecies of collared finchbill, a type of bulbul. This is a really tough bird to find. We hear it quite a bit. It's called the black-necklaced scimitar babbler, which we might also find skulking in some of the bushes. And then hopefully we're going to find the fairy pitta. They will have arrived just a few days before we come, when they should have started singing by now, but a really stunning bird. If you look at this video, you can really get an idea about this bird. In the book, you just see this yellow and green and red and blue, but when you see the bird in real life with this just shining blue on the wing, it's absolutely breathtaking. A really cool bird, very distinctive call. And one little bonus at the end of the trip that we just found out about recently, we went into a temple and they have quite a famous resident in there. There's a little collared scops owl that roosts in the roof of this temple, and the locals believe that it sort of protects the temple. A few years ago there was a big earthquake and many of the local buildings fell down, but the temple was left standing, and people believe that this scops owl was sort of protecting the temple. Okay, that is the end of the main tour. There's one last place I want to show you, which is on the east coast. We don't currently have this on the tour itself, but it's somewhere that you can add as an optional extension. We're going to head to the city of Taitung on the southeastern corner of Taiwan. You remember before I told you about this broad coastal band on the western side. On the eastern side, in some places the mountains just fall straight into the ocean, and the other places have got a very sort of narrow coastal strip. There's also a little coastal mountain range, and there's a little valley in between. This is an area where there's still quite a lot of Aboriginal people from various tribes. This is a little display showing where all the different tribes live. Really interesting people of Polynesian origin, but really fascinating culture, really nice music, which I'm very fond of. Okay, from Taitung we're going to fly to the small island of Lanyu, which is sometimes called Orchid Island. Really fascinating place. We're going to land at Lanyu Airport, and then we're going to explore the island. The local people here have got a very fascinating culture. They catch a lot of fish in the sea, and they have these beautiful boats with this very interesting shape. They catch flying fish, and they do so by putting up a net across their own boat, and then other boats will go around and sort of herd the fish and get them to try and jump over the boat, and they'll try and jump over and hit the net and then fall down into the boat. But very unique system of fishing. It's got a very rugged coastline, which is very picturesque. There's little offshore islets that have got an interesting story. During the Second World War, the US Air Force mistook this for a Japanese warship and dropped bombs on these rocks, but luckily they're still standing. And there's another famous rock here. It looks like a sort of lion roaring. This bird is quite common around the edge of the island, the blue rock thrush. But our main target on the island is the Ryukyu scops owl. But there's an endemic subspecies just to this island, which could be split in the future as the Lanyu scops owl. That's quite common here, and we should manage to find this at night. Okay, that's the end of the virtual tour. I hope you enjoyed it. It's a wonderful tour. I hope you feel inspired to come one day. It's not too physically challenging. It's got very nice culture and really delicious food, and a lot of different attractions. But as you can see, there's a lot of very beautiful birds here. And I hope you join me one day for a real tour here.